Hello, everyone. On the 27th of April, there's going to be an exact Mars Chiron square. Mars at the moment is in Cancer, which is not a very nice energy pattern for the Lord of war, simply because it is filled with emotions and it doesn't like to be filled with emotions. But funnily, if you want to have great sex, try to find someone with a watery Mars, because those people can actually react and relate to other people quite well. Just an interesting bit of information. So this square is not very nice because Mars, this Cancer Mars, is also ruling Chiron and a number of other celestial objects, Jupiter and Aries, for instance. And if you take a look at the space-time moment, things are escalating, unfortunately. I am located in Hungary, Budapest. So the Ukrainian war is next to us in our neighborhood. Please don't believe mainstream media, please. Everyone is lying. The Ukrainians are lying. Of course, they are fighting a just cause. But what I'm really mad at is that mainstream American media keeps saying unprovoked war, unprovoked conflict. No, it wasn't unprovoked. Research it, take a look what happened in the Donbas region, in the Ukraine. This region was almost totally inhabited by Russians after 2014. Read what Angela Merkel said about the agreement, how they never actually intended to keep the agreement at all, and they used the past 7 years or 7 years to prepare Ukraine, to give them a lot of weapons and money and everything for the war against Russia. And also, to tell you the truth, these are two Slav people. This is a brotherly war, okay, a sibling war. And you know what? I don't care. May as well they kill each other. I don't care. Neither of them is our friend. Now, especially the Ukrainians are not our friends anymore. It's so ridiculous how they, and the only people I'm interested in this whole war is those Hungarians who live in the region that used to belong to Hungary. For 1,000 years, for 1,000 years. Okay, so that's all I care for. The rest, I don't care. And I don't care for war propaganda, and I don't care for Western propaganda, and I don't care for Russian propaganda, because they are lying through their teeth. What is interesting is how dishonestly the mainstream media is treating this whole thing. When you read them, you would think that they are winning every day. No, they are not winning. About 10 million people left Ukraine, the country. Another probably a couple of 100,000 already died or got maimed in the war. So there won't be a Ukraine after the war. It will be dissected, and the American huge giant corporations are going to annex the lands. The what we call Chernozem. These are black soil territories, wonderful soil. And the problem is that they are already using GMO crop, so they are actually ruining the soil. Quite funny, and not. It would be funny if it weren't sad. Let's put it this way. Anyhow, let's take a look at the chart. And the exact square, the exact Mars Chiron square is on April 27th. The London time is 14:34. So you can actually calculate the time for wherever you are. And of course, this is the London chart. So as you can see on the ascendant, the two Liliths, the asteroid Lilith and the dark moon Lilith, are rising. The asteroid Lilith is the first turning point of the Lilith myth, which says, I don't want to be below you. So it's the revolt against Yahweh's injustice. And the dark moon Lilith is the second turning point, when Lilith leaves the Garden of Eden and doesn't want to go back, and instead takes upon herself Yahweh's curse. And also Trans-Pluto is also rising. So that's what you have on the ascendant. Opposite it, you have Saturn on the descendant, the Lord of Karma, of course. Then you also have on the midheaven a Sedna-Juno conjunction. This is an applying conjunction. And Sedna is at the last degrees of Taurus, and Juno, the first five, the first lady, is applying to it. And it means that you are able to dissect your relationships, since it's on the midheaven for London or around London. You can utilize it for the future or your aspirations. And so it means that you can actually rectify, you can actually beautify your relationships by looking at it, by dissecting it, and throwing out the non-working segments of it. And there's this triple conjunction of Astrea, the North Node, and Vesta, which means that you can now break old embedded karma, anything. But of course, this is on the North Node. If it were on the South Node, then I would say that you need to get rid of whatever you are carrying from the past. In this case, the North Node is in Taurus, and I emphasized this many times, that for us, this means that we have about a couple of weeks left to solidify our financial situation, to look at our harmony, our stability, our well-being, our security, and anything that is making life nicer, more beautiful, more secure. That is what we need to focus on. Vesta, North Node conjunction, and Astrea is the karma breaker. So whatever is in the way, you can get rid of it now. So also there's this karmic cage, which I'm going to dissect for you in a minute. And the Jupiter Aries conjunction is still quite tight. Jupiter is already separating from Aries, but it's still there. Here's the Chiron. I did this whole thing. I'm recording this on the 23rd. I never have the time to do it right before the day, and I just had very, very little time. And also, and you look at the space-time moment, and you can see, I'm just read in the news, although I know that everyone is lying, that the Ukrainians are amassing 40,000 people. So it's a large army that they are now practicing, and what the Russians do, I have no idea what they do, but well, we will see. But there will be an escalation of war by the time this is going to be exact, that's for sure. That's probably it. So let's take a look at these two configurations. One is a karmic cage, and the other one is a little engine. Engines are made up by three different aspect families. In this case, the little engine is a square, a sextile, and a quincunx. You also have if it's a true engine, you have a trine instead of the sextile. So what is combined here is the tension of the square, the karmic intent of the quincunx, and the sextile gives you potentials for harmony and for working together. So in this case, the little engine really helps you to resolve, so to speak, the Mars Chiron square. This is a cardinal square, and as I said, Mars is ruling not just Chiron, but also Aries and Jupiter. So the conflict is enlarging. The drastically altered outward circumstances are blown up. And Hygeia describes sacred spaces, putting things in order, living a life which is healthy, and where you have temperance and pay attention to everything and don't go do excesses. And by this, you create health and prosperity just by itself. So that is what dissolves the cardinal square between Mars and Chiron. So we could actually have, so there could be a moment in time when we could let go this horrible thing that is happening. But of course, the cardinal square is way too strong. And the karmic cage is interesting because whenever you see this in a chart, you can be sure that the person, the native, will be able to access its destiny choices much earlier than those who don't have anything like this. Because what happens is we usually work with our South Node because it is our karmic. It describes our karmic piggy bank. Whatever you bring in for this incarnation, what sort of pattern you are utilizing whenever you are cornered or threatened. This is how you act. And you should actually move away from it, not giving it up entirely, because that is your saving grace. That is your way of defending yourself. But you should learn new stuff, which is symbolized by the south node, or by the north node, sorry. So you should move away kind of from the south node towards your north node. And this is something that we usually do for the first time, sometime at our midlife crisis, so sometime around 45, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. 45 is really truly a turning point in our lives for several reasons. But if you have a karmic cage, which means that there is a zigzag square to the nodal axis, don't forget that the orb is very tight, since the nodes are not radiating objects, that they are points in time, points in space, sorry. You need to have configurations within 1.5 degrees, otherwise it's 2 degrees. At this apex, you have the moon, which is also illuminating things. So here we can have a moment in time where you will actually be able to do something about our chosen destiny tasks. So if you take a look, you will see how curiously these two configurations are actually joining. I'm going to show you how. I named this little, first we have to look at the transcendental objects. So let's take a look at the transcendental objects there. Okay, here what you have here is the moon has Hebe, Fantasia, and virtue, Virtus. And Hebe is the goddess of youth. And I must tell you that even within my family and everyone around me, this particular youth group, the X generation or whatever, so those who are born after 2000, they are so devoid of reality. They are so distanced from everyday reality. It is scary. And I don't have too much hope for the next generation either. But anyhow, so it means that, the moon is highlighting this issue. Fantasy means that we can live in fantasy land, unfortunately, but we also can use our fantasy in order to come out of debilitating situations. And virtus, is you have 4 cardinal virtues and 3 divine virtues. What are these? We have force or temperance. Fortitudo is so it's justice, justitia, fortitudo, temperance, temperanza, and what is it? Hold on. It's in the tarot. It's the card 2 is and wisdom, of course. So the high priestess is wisdom. If you look at the tarot cards, number 2 of the major arcana is the high priestess. That's wisdom. Number 8 is justice. Number 11 is force. So fortitudo, and number 14 is temperanza. Which is also it describes, I mentioned, jump as well. So those are the 4 cardinal squares, as cardinal virtues, and we have 3 so-called divine virtues, which is hope, love, and faith. Actually, faith, hope, and love. That's the normal order of them, but it doesn't really matter. So that's what it means, that if we could actually summon these virtues, these cardinal virtues, then we would be much better off. On Mars, you have Veritas, which means truth, and Zeus, the chief god. On the North Node, you still have Hatshepsut, Sheraton, and Meshartem. I spoke about these many times because in the last 2 weeks, these were always prominent. The nodal axis moves approximately 3 minutes a day, which means that these will be within orb for at least a month. And then on Chiron, you have Virakosha and Seneca. Virakosha is an interesting figure because he's the great white teacher, or the great white god who is helping the South Americans to get grips with agriculture and things like that. He's a figure probably appearing after the collapse of Atlantis. So he must be an Atlantean teacher who is actually teaching new things to people. And Seneca, of course, is the cynical philosopher. So that's what we need now at the moment. And this is what I wanted to show you. So we do have this little curious thing up here, which I named Dragonfly. And it's made up by two squares. One is the moon north node, and the other one is the Mars Chiron square. And if you take a look, there is a quincunx and a quintile, sorry, and a tridecile, which actually kind of closes this. But of course, on the sides you have nothing. So it really looks like the wings of a dragonfly, which is a very curious creature. I love them dearly because they are kind of bulky, and they are can still stand in the air and not moving and then flashing away. So they are not as beautiful maybe as butterflies, but they are quite interesting creatures. And so these squares are dissolved by the quintile and the tridecile. What's the problem? That you don't actually have energies. There's no, in the quintile series, they are not filled with energy. They are filled with ingeniousness, but nothing actually moves them. But of course, the squares move them. So there is true hope. And of course, the quintile is between the North Node and Mars. And it means that, yes, you can fight for your security and your well-being. And the tridecile, which is which denotes ingeniousness that is manifesting in altered states of consciousness, that is the other dissolution of the Mars Chiron square by the moon itself, which is highlighting and illuminating the whole thing on a soul level. And the mystic rectangle of a week ago or even 10 days ago is still there. It's still quite tight. You have the Astrea Vesta North Node on the one hand, opposite, of course, the South Node, and the Trans-Pluto Saturn opposition is again still there. I'm not going to delineate this because I did it many, many times, only to mention you that that Saturn is not very happy in Pisces because it gets dissolved. These strong borders and security and hierarchy are getting dissolved in Pisces. But opposite Trans-Pluto, which is dimension jump and channeling, actually is in an earth sign and will be in an earth sign for decades. But indeed, it means that you can actually bring down to the earth plane whatever you need from above. So channel, please pay attention to your premonitions, to your dreams, and try channeling valid information for your own life. And I want to show you what the sun does. The sun is about 4 degrees or 5 degrees away and separating from the conjunction. So it's actually, it is in the conjunction, but separating, but it's not part of the karmic cage and the mystic rectangle, because remember, the orb is 1.5 to 2 degrees, 2 degrees for radiating objects, 1.5 degrees for chart points that are non-radiating. So the sun is not part of these configurations. It is part of the conjunction, yes, but what it does is a lot more important, because think about it. If you see a quarrel or you see a football match, when you are in the middle of it, you won't be able to assess its true value or its true momentum. But when you are outside as an observer, you actually know what is happening much better. That's exactly what the sun does. It distances itself from the main action and is an onlooker and shines light on the situation and illuminates. And in this case, the sun illuminates both the karmic cage and the mystic rectangle, which are actually joined. So that was it. Please pay attention to the news. I'm almost sure that that the war will be escalating. They are talking about a big spring offensive or something like that. Don't believe one word, don't believe anything. They are lying through their teeth, especially mainstream legacy media is lying. They are just putting forward the agenda of the elite, which doesn't want, they hate you. They hate you, the ordinary people. They hate you who want security and harmony and just be let alone and just have your own life and go and do whatever you want. No, they don't want that. Okay, they want disruption and they hate you. And this hate you can feel by the elites. They really not just hate, they also despise you. That's the problem. So pay attention to the news. Hopefully the war is not going to escalate. Yes, it is. I'm going to tell you now. It's probably going to escalate. There are some redeeming factors. There's the Dragonfly. Of course, if you associate the Dragonfly with helicopters, could be the war helicopters. I just made this realization, but let's hope it will bring some dissolution to the situation as well. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.